Hi everyone, this is the third episode in the deep dive series of Collexy. Today we will be discussing the third set of the Pokemon trading card game, which is Fossil. Just like the previous episodes, we'll be focusing on the English structure of the Fossil set. The English structure is followed by all other languages except for Japanese. Japanese follows its own structure, which is not part of this video. For future reference, this video is only focused on the English structure and discussing all the different masters and variants of these masters with respect to the English structure. So the Japanese structure altogether, which is the single cards and the sealed product, and the English structure with respect to the sealed product will not be part of this video. If there is enough demand for it, we will make an English structure sealed product video as well. So the set that is the topic of the video today is the Fossil set, which was released on the 10th of October in 1999. The custom-made database of Collexy, which is a new platform through which you can transact, buy, sell, collect, etc., everything with respect to collectibles, enabled me to make this video as it maps out all different variants of the different cards in the Fossil set. We will not be going too much into details with respect to the database. Simply remember that Collexy enables you to elevate your collection needs and your collection to the next level through its custom-made databases. So let's briefly look at the database and how it basically functions in order to properly understand the rest of the video. This has already been discussed in the video with respect to the base set, but we will briefly repeat what was said in there in a summarized fashion. So the first element in the database structure is the era, which is the period during which a factory set was released. Then we have the factory set itself, which is the collection of cards under one denominator. Then we have a master. For every card in the set, there is one single master. And for every master, there can be multiple variants, which is a specific edition of a card. So let's here take a look at an example of a card of the Fossil set. This is Gengar. Gengar is one of the cards of the Fossil set, and first of all, we need to determine the era, and the era is clearly Wizards of the Coast. The factory set here is the Fossil set. The Fossil set has in total 62 different cards, which means there are 62 different masters. A master here is obviously Gengar, and the variant that is being displayed is the English Unlimited edition with the copyright of Wizards of the Coast of 1999. However, please note that every master has at least 14 variants in the Fossil set. So now we'll be taking a look at the structure of the Fossil set. The Fossil set contains a total of 62 cards, which means there are 62 masters. Of these 62 masters, there are basically 57 Pokemon and 5 trainer cards. There are no energy cards, just like the jungle set. With respect to the rarities, we have 15 holo rares, 15 rares. We can hereby say that these holo rares and the rare cards, they have the identical artwork, except for the holofoil pattern. The 15 first cards of the Fossil set do have the holofoil pattern. The later ones, which are the rare ones, do not have a holofoil pattern. Then we have also 16 uncommon cards and 16 common cards. The Fossil set was also printed in the following languages, which are the same as the Jungle set, which are English, Dutch, German, French, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese. So once again, for completeness sake, we will also take a look at the card structure. However, the card structure will not be that much different from the card structure discussed in the base set and the jungle sets. So the structure of a Pokemon card is, like I just said, not that much different from the base set and the jungle set. So first we discuss the elements in the top left corner of the Pokemon cards, which is the visual representation and textual representation of the Pokemon from which the Pokemon that is featured in the art box will evolve. After that, we can see the name of the Pokemon and the health points, which is abbreviated as HP, with the type of the Pokemon. The name of the Pokemon can differ based on the language in which the card was printed. So now we'll take a look at the art box. That's where the Pokemon that is featured on the card is displayed. For the holo rares, we can see that there were two different kinds of holofoil patterns. We have the Starlight holofoil and we have the Cosmos holofoil. So the Starlight Holofoil was only used for English variants, even though there is also a Cosmos variant for the Holo Rares, which we'll discuss later. And then we also have the Cosmos Holofoil variants, but these are generally only for the non-English languages in which the fossil set was printed. So just like base sets and jungle, in this area, there is either a first edition stamp or there is nothing. If there's a first edition stamp, the variant is first edition. If there is no first edition stamp, then the variant is always unlimited edition. So in this space, there is always the set symbol. We have seen with base set that there was no set symbol because there is no set symbol for base set. We had the error prints for jungle, where the holofoil rares were not printed with a set symbol by accident. However, for fossil, we always see the set symbol in the bottom right corner, right below the art box. The set symbol is also a skeleton hand. So in this area is basically everything with respect to the power of the Pokemon. So we can see the Pokemon power, we can see the attacks, the description, everything. This will always be printed in the language in which the Pokemon was printed. On the bottom of the card, you can see on the left hand side the illustrator of the master. Next to it, you can see the Nintendo copyright years. And then a little bit more to the right, you can see the Wizards of the Coast copyright years. Then finally, on the right hand side on the bottom of the card, you can see the number of the master, and then all the way in the corner, you can see the rarity of the master. As mentioned, the fossil set also contains 5 trainer cards. The only difference, just like the base set and the jungle set, is that the first edition stamp is not on the left hand side under the art box, but on the bottom left side. Here we see no first edition stamp, so this is an unlimited variant. So as usual, we will now take a look at the different parameters that will influence the amount of variations that exist per parameter. As mentioned earlier, the fossil set was printed in 7 different languages, which are English, Dutch, German, French, Italian, and Portuguese. For all the languages except for English, there are only 2 variants. On the one hand, the first edition variant, and on the other hand, the unlimited edition variant, while in English, there are multiple different variants. As mentioned in the structure of the card, with respect to the edition, you can differentiate between, on the one hand, first edition and on the other hand, unlimited edition through the presence or absence of the first edition stamp on the left side under the art box. So just like base set and jungle, fossil was also printed with 2 different kinds of holofoils. The first one is a starlight holofoil, which has a stars pattern and was only used for the English variants. On the other hand, we have the Cosmos holofoil, which was used for all the other languages. However, as we will see later, we will also have an English variant that is printed in the Cosmos holofoil. These were also only for, of course, the holofoil rares, but these were considered to be unofficial releases. We will go more in depth later on. There are 15 holofoil rares in fossil, while all the other cards are non-holofoil. So with respect to the Wizards of the Coast copyright years, the same thing applies as for jungle, where only the English variants have a copyright year of Wizards of the Coast of 1999, while the variants in all other languages will have the copyright year of the Wizards of the Coast 1999 to 2000. So now we will discuss the different print runs that the fossil set was subject to. There are in total 3 different print runs. The first print run is the first edition variant. These variants can easily be distinguished with the first edition stamp on the left side right under the art box. The first edition variants were printed in English, Dutch, German, French, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. However, the English variants were printed with the Wizards of the Coast copyright year of 1999, while for all the other languages it was printed with Wizards copyright 1999 to 2000. The second print run only contained unlimited edition variants, which is very similar to the first edition print run, which was the first print run, where the English cards were only printed with Wizards of the Coast copyright year 1999, while the Dutch, German, French, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese variants were printed with the Wizards of the Coast copyright years 1999 to 2000. Then the third and final print run was also a print run of the unlimited edition variants. These were only printed in English, But also very important to note is that only the non-holo rares were printed in this print run. These were printed with the Wizards of the Coast copyright years 1999 to 2000, but they were not printed in Dutch, German, French, Spanish, Italian, or Portuguese. So only the non-holo masters were printed in this print run. And these variants could only be found in Australian red logo product, which is why it's also called the Australian print run. There is only one exception, which is the Zapdos 15 out of 62, as the Wizards of the Coast copyright 1999 to 2000 variant could be found in the Tempest gift box. As we have now walked through the structure of the set, we have now discussed the different masters and variants, how a Pokemon card looks, etc. We will now conclude before we go more in depth on the different variants that exist in addition to the already discussed variants. So, as a summary overview, the first edition with the Wizards of the Coast copyright year 1999 were only printed in English, while the first edition, copyright 1999 to 2000, were not printed in English in first edition, but were printed in Dutch, German, French, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. With respect to the unlimited edition with copyright year 1999, these were again only printed in English. While for the unlimited edition with Wizards of the Coast copyright years 1999 to 2000, they were printed, all the cards were printed in Dutch, German, French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, which means that also the holo rares were printed in these languages with the copyright years 1999 to 2000, while for English, this is only the case for all the cards that are non-holo rares. So with respect to the decision tree, the first question that we have to ask ourselves is whether the variant was printed in English or in another language. If the variant was printed in another language, the only determination you have to do is whether the variant is first edition or unlimited edition. However, if the variant is English and is a first edition variant, then the case is closed because there is only one variant that meets these criteria. If the English variant is unlimited edition, then we have to question whether it's a holo rare master or a non-holo rare master. If it is a holo rare master, a distinction is to be made between, on the one hand, the Cosmos holofoil, which we will discuss later, or the Starlight holofoil. If it is a non-holo rare master, we have to make a distinction between, on the one hand, the Wizards of the Coast copyright year 1999 or the Wizards of the Coast copyright years 1999 to 2000. We have now discussed the English structure of the fossil set, the concept of masters and variants, and the different variations that would standard be included under each master. We have determined that there would be at least 14 variants per master, but we will also now be discussing the special variants, which means that there are additional variants with some masters, which we'll now go more in depth on. So, as we mentioned earlier, generally speaking, the English variants were all printed with a Starlight holofoil, and this applies to both the first edition and the unlimited edition of the fossil set. However, there were some English variants with the Wizards of the Coast copyright year of 1999 and printed in English that were not printed with a Starlight holofoil, but were actually printed with a Cosmos holofoil. This is basically the same as all other languages. However, these variants are not officially released. Another very interesting master is the Aerodactyl, which is the holo rare master. This master has quite a few variants that differ, which can be determined on four parameters, which is language, holofoil, edition, and the presence or absence of a pre-release stamp. The first variant of Aerodactyl is the first edition variant without the pre-release stamp and with the Wizards of the Coast copyright year 1999. This variant was basically simply included in the English jungle product and could be pulled from booster boxes and booster packs of the fossil set. This is the second variant of Aerodactyl, which is almost identical to the first variant, except that this one is unlimited edition. This one was also printed in English, just like the first one, and this variant was included in all the English jungle product, which means the booster boxes and the booster packs. And just like the first one, this one is also Starlight holofoil. This third variant looks very similar to the first variant, with the only difference that there is a pre-release stamp. This variant was distributed at the Pokémon League in July 1999 in the United States. Why the United States? Is because of the Starlight holofoil that is used in the art box. This variant of Aerodactyl looks very similar to the previous one, except that the holofoil here is the Cosmos holofoil. The difference here is that this variant was distributed at the Pokémon League in July 1999 in Europe, except for Germany and Italy. More on that later. You can recognize this variant from what we saw earlier in the video, which was the unofficial release of the Wizards of the Coast, where some English unlimited variants were printed with a Cosmos holofoil and without a pre-release stamp. Um, as we already discussed, this was part of the unofficial release and is one of the rarest variants of Aerodactyl. This is basically the Aerodactyl in first edition without the pre-release stamp in all other languages than English. You can also, aside of the language, you can easily distinguish them by the Cosmos holofoil that is being used for all other languages except English, while English only uses Starlight holofoil. This variant was included in the non-English jungle product, which are booster boxes and booster packs. This variant looks very similar to the previous variant, except here this one is the unlimited edition instead of the first edition. Just like the previous one, this variant was included in the non-English jungle product, which is both booster boxes and booster packs. This is the last and final variant of Aerodactyl in the fossil set. This is also a Cosmos holofoil variant, but only distributed in German and Italian in unlimited edition with the pre-release stamp in the bottom right corner of the art box. This variant was distributed at the Pokémon League in July 1999 in Germany and Italy, but clearly misses the first edition stamp compared to the other pre-release Aerodactyls. Another very interesting variant is the Zapdos Holo Rare, which has in total 7 different variants. So we'll be looking at those variants right now. The first variation is the Zapdos first edition with the evolution box error. So this variant is based on the English first edition with Wizards of the Coast copyright of 1999. But as you can see in the top left of the art box, you can see there is no holofoil where the evolution box would have been. This variant is clearly first edition and will only come with the evolution box error, as this was never rectified in subsequent editions. In the second variant, the same error appears, however, this is an unlimited edition variant. Here again, in the top left of the art box, you can see that there is no holofoil where there should have been an evolution box. This variant is the unlimited edition, but it was corrected, which we will see in the next variant. So with this variant, it's very identical to the previous one, except that the evolution box error has been rectified here. So in the top left corner of the R box, you see that there is holofoil and that there is no evolution box visible anymore. The fourth variant is the English Zapdos with the Cosmos holofoil treatment. This variant forms part of the unofficial WotC release of English variants with the Cosmos holofoil, which we discussed earlier in the video. However, it is important to note here that this one can be distinguished through the Wizards of the Coast copyright year 1999, which it will distinguish from the next variant. And the next variant is basically the same, except this is a variant that comes and that forms part of the Thunderstorm deck. It also has a Cosmos holofoil, comes in English and in unlimited edition. The only way to distinguish this variant from the previous one is that here the Wizards of the Coast copyright years are 1999 through 2000. There is, of course, also first edition variants in all other languages. These all come with a Cosmos holofoil and can be distinguished with, of course, the first edition stamp in the bottom left corner under the art box, and they all have a Wizards of the Coast copyright years of 1999 to 2000. And this is basically the unlimited edition of Zapdos in all other languages than English, where you always have a Cosmos holofoil. You see that there is no first edition stamp in the bottom left corner under the art box, and that the Wizards of the Coast copyright years are 1999 to 2000. The next variants that we will discuss are the variants that have their provenance in the Australian print run, which is the third print run, that where there is basically a Wizards of the Coast copyright years 1999 to 2000. As an example, I've here added Articuno, which is a rare in the fossil set. However, bear in mind this does not only apply to this card, it applies to all rares, uncommons, and commons, but excludes all holo rares. So as we can see, this variant is based on the English Unlimited Edition with Wizards of the Coast copyright 1999 to 2000. This means that all non-holo rare masters of the fossil set have an extra variant in Unlimited Edition with the Wizards of the Coast copyright years of 1999 to 2000. These cards are basically the result of the third print run, which is also referred to as the Australian release. However, we have to make a comment with this Australian release of the third print run with respect to the Thunderstorm deck. The Thunderstorm deck contains variants in English in Unlimited Edition with the Wizards of the Coast copyright years 1999 to 2000. For the Holo Rare Zapdos, which we already discussed earlier in this video, and the non-Holo Rare variants pictured, which are Raichu, Golduck, Psyduck, and Energy Surge, these variants are part of the third print run, but could also be found in the Thunderstorm gift box. There is no convincing way to differentiate between the third print and Thunderstorm gift box variant, which results in the fact that there is still only one extra variant due to the Wizards of the Coast 1999 to 2000 copyright. Then there are a couple of more variants, two basically, where there is one additional variant per master. So the first variant that we will discuss is a variant of Kabuto. This is basically identical to the variant that is English Unlimited Edition with the Wizards of the Coast copyright 1999. This variant could be found in the Top Deck magazine of December 1999, and this is the second of seven cards that were issued with the stylized W, which represents the first letter of the original logo of Wizards of the Coast. There were in total only seven variants of seven different masters that were printed with the so-called W stamp. The second variant is a variant of Krabby, which is basically the same as the English Unlimited Edition with Wizards of the Coast copyright year 1999. This variant comes with a set symbol, the skeleton hand, that seems to be cut in two. And this error is commonly referred to as a slash error and seems to only apply to the Unlimited Edition Krabby cards in English. This video was made possible by Collexy, allowing me to basically map out all the different fossil variants in the English structure. So what is Collexy? Collexy is a new platform to collect, track, buy, sell, and value your collectibles powered by custom databases. The custom databases of Collexy map all different variants of a card, differentiating between all variants as every variant is different. Collect your cards now on Collexy through the Collection Maker tool that facilitates your specific collection needs. Through Collexy, I learned that there are 192 English variants of the jungle sets. However, if I were to solely collect the unlimited English variants of the jungle set, the total amount of variants would be reduced to 128. If I would add the parameter of only wanting to collect the variants with Wizards of the Coast copyright year 1999, which excludes the Australian print, then that would reduce the collection to 80 variants. We invite you to play around with all our features and to make your own personal collections on Collexy. I hope you found this video educational and fun to watch. Please like, subscribe, and share. Please also follow our Instagram for more solid Pokemon content. Signing out, Collexy, where collectibles connect.